Hey guys, it's Kai and welcome to the video. Today I'm going to be doing my first part in a new series which I'm going to be calling Get Ready with Tea. Yes, it's a terrible pun, but I do enjoy a good bad pun. So, editor's POV here. I'm currently not even halfway through editing and the amount of times I've said basically is ridiculous, so I'm sorry for that. For those of legal age, I would say drinking game, but you might die, so enjoy that. Anyway, so basically I've already put my base makeup on, just a bit of foundation. I actually mixed not just the one in my first video, which is the Too Faced Peach Perfect, but I also mixed in a bit of Colourpop Pretty Fresh, which is a hyaluronic acid tinted moisturizer. This one is a bit too light for me, and then this guy is a bit too dark for me at the moment, so I mixed them both together and saw if it worked. It seems to have worked decently well. I did end up having to add a little bit more of my normal color just because this one is not very high coverage being a tinted moisturizer. So I didn't really do much too different from previously. Just set my makeup, put on some bronzer, some blush, some highlighter, using all my standard products. The only difference recently is I actually tried today for the first time ever the Fourth Ray Beauty Clean Slate Foaming Exfoliator. So this bad boy, I was really interested by this actually because what I didn't realize when I ordered it is it's actually a powder. So this little bottle contains like a loose powder and you put a little amount in your hand and then add water and make it into a lather. It left my skin feeling so silky smooth. It was wonderful. One thing I will need to do before I can go outside again after quarantine is invest in some face moisturizer because this Clean Slate Foaming Exfoliator does contain AHAs which do make your skin more sensitive to UV, so you get easier sunburn and more sun damage. But anyway, that's enough jabbering about makeup. So this video is going to be more commentary while I do my eyeshadow, and so I'm actually going to be talking about the whole Jeffree Star, Darby Vanity and Mum's Basement podcast scandal scenario, everything that's going on. I will not be talking too much about the Darby Vanity stuff. It's not something I particularly want to talk about. It is a very important issue to be talked about, but I think that there are plenty of really good videos out there covering the scenario, and obviously even Chris Hansen has gotten involved now, which is something I will be talking about, but I'm going to be talking more about Jeffree Star's actions and behaviour in all of this, rather than the accusations and evidence and that have been brought forward. So yeah, I'll be trying to keep this one not light so much as just my honest opinions. I'm starting to get really frustrated. I will say from the very start, I don't particularly like Jeffree Star as a person, but I do really like his products. I have a couple of his highlighters. I've got the highlighter he did with Manny MUA, and I have got highlighting palette of his. I've got a couple of lipsticks from him, and I have actually got on order the Conspiracy palette and Mini Controversy palette, which were his collabs with Shane Dawson, but I mainly got them because I adore Shane Dawson and wanted to support him. So full transparency, yes, I do own Jeffree's products and I do really enjoy them, and I have got more on order, but I'm not the biggest fan of him as a person because the more that comes out, the more we know he's not the best. So today, for my eyes, I'm going to be diving into the Colourpop Frozen 2 Anna palette. This is a gorgeous little palette. It's got a bunch of really pretty kind of mauve and gold tones and a couple of taupes. It's gorgeous. So I'm just kind of going to be playing around with this. I haven't really had a proper chance to play with it yet, so I'll be just kind of seeing how I go. Alright, so let's get into the tea. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the ongoing scenario that is Jeffree Star, Darby Vanity, etc. Basically, Jeffree Star used to be a musician back in his MySpace days, and he would do Warped Tour and do his own tours and all that, and he was pretty popular, but he was in a very certain crowd of kind of, I guess you'd refer to as emo punk rock sort of crowd, which we already know from a lot of stories and that are not necessarily the best crowds, especially back, I think it was 10 years ago. So it's, you know, unfortunately, at least to me, it wasn't particularly surprising to learn of a lot of this. But basically, Darby Vanity, who was a part of Blood on the Dance Floor, which was another band popular at the time that was friends with Jeffree. Jeffree has specified that he wasn't particularly good friends with Darby himself, but he was pretty good friends with some of the other band members. Basically, Darby was accused at the time of inappropriate conduct with underage girls that at the time Jeffree Star tweeted out about and actually tried to expose him. And then within, I think about a year later, Jeffree had then tweeted out saying, "Oh, I'm going on tour with my boy, Darby Vanity. He's my brother, we love him. It was a misunderstanding and everything's been cleared up and it's all good." So obviously these are very, very contradictory statements. On one hand, he was calling him a child molester, and on the other hand, he said that he was his brother and it was all false. But basically recently, there have been some victims come out and speak about their experiences, and Jeffree's old tweets have resurfaced, and Jeffree has been kind of brought back into the spotlight as a part of this situation. So that's kind of a little bit of background as to what actually has been going on. Now, before I continue, I'm going to get into a bit of charades, which is this bottom brown color here. And just going to be putting that in my crease. So basically, Jeffree's tweets were obviously contradictory and confusing to a lot of people, and because Jeffree continued to tour with Blood on the Dance Floor, it gave some people the impression that the rumours and the allegations and that were entirely false, and Jeffree basically exposed his audience to Blood on the Dance Floor and all of that, which is a danger in itself, and Jeffree has since apologised for exactly that, for exposing his audience to such an individual. Now, last week, I believe, Jeffree, as I said, did an interview with Chris Hansen, where unfortunately, because Jeffree obviously isn't the accused in this situation, he wasn't particularly strictly questioned by Chris Hansen. Chris Hansen kind of let Jeffree lead the conversation and did a lot of listening and not a whole lot of actually asking questions. So one of the reasons that this made me dislike Jeffree Star even more is that he contradicts himself throughout this interview a few times, not a whole lot, but a few times, saying one thing and then kind of saying, "Oh, but I didn't mean it like that," and you know, at the time it was like this. Particularly the thing that stood out to me and to a lot of people was he kept reiterating that, you know, looking back now, the things he was doing just like on stage, grinding on underage girls and that, it's not appropriate, it's awful, but at the time it's just what was done. And he's saying, you know, looking at it now, like, I think it's despicable, and a lot of people have been calling him out for kind of, I guess, hypocrisy on this, because here he is saying that these things are awful, and he even said that, you know, at the time we knew they were inappropriate, but it was just what was done. And so it takes that whole stance of, you know, shouldn't the person who helped to cover it up, or helped to, in this case, just not really bring it to the authorities, shouldn't they cop flack as well for not actually bringing it to someone's attention? And honestly, yeah, I agree with Jeffree copping a bit of flack for not actually going to anyone and saying, hey, these things he's doing, they're kind of not great, so like, we shouldn't associate with him. You know, his whole thing was, he says that when he went back on tour that year after the tweet with Blood on the Dance Floor, he went to the band members and asked them, you know, did you see anything happen? And they all said no, and that was Jeffree's reasoning. He'd heard these things, but he wanted to get proof, and the band members defended him, and that was that basically. The problem I have there is, if Jeffree believed it enough to have to go to the band members to ask for proof on moral grounds, it seems strange to me that he wouldn't just say this is a bad idea, because even if there are those allegations, like from a PR perspective, which I know can be a very cold-hearted way to look at it, but even from a PR perspective, that's not going to look good for you. It's just not. So it just seems a bit strange to me, and I think it seems strange to a lot of different people. Also, I forgot to mention, but Jeffree was 25 when all of this was happening. So basically, I'm 22. I've seen YouTubers as young as like 19 talk about this, and they have a better moral compass at 19 than Jeffree apparently had at 25. So that's also something to think about. So that whole interview was interesting because he chose to address a bunch of things, which was really good. He addressed the tweets, he addressed most of the questions that people had for him, but he also did it in a very strange way. And it's funny because I'd love to say it was a publicity stunt and he did it for, you know, trying to cover up his name and give himself positive press, but if he prepped for that with a publicity agent, I think he needs a new one, to be honest, because in my opinion, he did not handle that well from a publicity standpoint at all. He really didn't. So yeah, yikes. Alright, now I'm going to go in with a bit of this dark purple shade here, Autumn Breeze, which I'm going to use to darken up that crease a little bit more. So there was obviously the interview with Chris Hansen, and people were a little bit pissed off with that already, but it got even better because just after this, Jeffree went on a podcast called Mum's Basement, which is Keemstar, FaZe Banks, and Colossal. Now, I've heard it said multiple times. I agree, and I'm going to say it myself. Colossal was the only person who really seemed to speak with good reasoning in that podcast, in that he actually questioned a lot of what Jeffree Star said. And I'm trying to remember who it was. I was watching a video the other day, and someone pointed out that Colossal, through a lot of the podcast, stays quiet and then comes in with these zinger questions, like killing it. One of the things that gets brought up by one of the guys is the Dramageddon scandal with James Charles. Now, a little bit of background for those of you that haven't heard about it, though I think at this point everyone and their mums and their nans and their boyfriends and their dads have heard about it. So last year, Tati, or Glam Life Guru, who is a very, very popular beauty YouTuber, posted a video called Bye Sister. It was 45 minutes long, I believe, in which she detailed why she was cutting James Charles out of her life after kind of taking him on as her protege previously, including several allegations of predatory behavior on his part, particularly towards straight men, and making them question their sexuality. Now, this obviously was an insanely large scandal, so I was following it very, very intensely, following the rise of Tati subscribers, the fall of James subscribers. It was a mess, but it all then, James initially uploaded a really bad apology video that was kind of really fake and scripted seeming. Then he uploaded a longer, more detailed apology video in which he actually debunked a lot of the things that had been accused. And then it kind of all went silent. Now, in the middle of this, old mate Jeffree decided to get out his Twitter fingers and put out a tweet basically saying that he agrees with everything Tati says, and why do people think James is banned from his house because Jeffree's boyfriend at the time, Nate, thinks that James is a predator. And it was just a mess. It was a mess. I was like, Jeffree, why are you getting involved? And basically, like, I don't really even know why he did that, what was going on. But that's all old news. And we thought that was it. It had been put in the bin and we didn't need to worry about it anymore. And then there was the Shane Dawson series that came out about making their palette, and in the trailer for the series they showed a lot of Dramageddon and everyone was really excited. They were like, we're gonna get the truth, because one of Jeffree's tweets had said that he had receipts as to James actually being a predator and blah blah blah. So everyone was like, oh, we're gonna get receipts, it's gonna be exciting. I know that my friend and I were messaging each other being like, oh my god, yes, tea, yes, good. And then the series came out and there was no tea. And then they released a bonus episode and there was them reacting and that was about it. That was their faces when they watched Tati's video, or it was kind of just Shane's, I think. So it was a bit of an anticlimax. Alright, now I'm going to go in with this bottom middle shade, Fearless, and I'm just going to blend that up onto my brow bone a little bit. So currently got just kind of a smoky purple crease going on, and yeah, I'm just going to blend that up a little bit, and then I'm probably going to go in with some gold on the lid. So we thought this was dead news. We thought it was all over. We thought we didn't need to worry about all this Dramageddon crap anymore. And then this episode of Mum's Basement, it gets brought up because honestly I can see the connection. It's currently Jeffree's being connected to a predator, and Jeffree tweeted out about James being a predator. He had his drama with James, and so one of the guys did bring it up and was like, hey, you know, this draws a striking similarity to the fact that you seem to get yourself in these sort of situations a decent amount of the time. And Jeffree said throughout this podcast he defended James, and then he said that James was a danger to society, or he agreed that James was a danger to society, and then he said he had receipts, he had evidence from a victim of James's that he could show, and then he couldn't show it, and then he offered to go in another room and show it, but then as far as I know didn't show it. And then they were like, why don't you tell us the story without mentioning any names, that way there's no privacy problem, that way we can get it out there because it's important. And Jeffree said that no, he didn't want to do that to James, and James's mental health was too important. So now there's a few problems with this. His hypocrisy, going back and forth and disagreeing with himself basically, means that it's hard to believe anything he says, to be honest. Does he have receipts? Does he not? If he does have receipts, then is he defending a predator by not releasing them, which is similar to what he did with Darby by not reporting him? It's a very messy, very difficult situation, and frankly it's pissing me off because I can't believe a word that comes out of Jeffree's mouth these days. And after everything, James Charles is doing pretty well at the moment. He's not someone that I particularly enjoy watching, but I've regained a lot of respect for him since the scandal. I think that he actually handled it decently well, unlike a lot of the other people involved, which is nice. So I don't particularly want to see James in hot water again if there's no proof or victims, because at this point, after everything that happened last time, it's getting a bit boy who cried wolf. It's hard to believe the other parties in this situation. Also, only a few weeks ago, Jeffree was tweeting out, favour to James, being like, oh my gosh, it's so wonderful, as usual. So everyone's like, are you friends? Are you not? Do you like him? Do you hate him? Is he a predator? Are you protecting a predator? Is he not a predator and you keep saying he is, which is potentially going to ruin his career and his life? It's a really messy situation, and I really wish that, if Jeffree has receipts, at this point he really does need to release them, because if he keeps these receipts to himself and keeps teasing at them, either people are going to believe him and it's gonna ruin James's career with no proof, or people are just gonna stop believing him, and if what he has is real, then he is protecting a predator. So it's a bit of a mess, to be honest. It's very frustrating. I am finding myself very frustrated with the whole situation, to be honest. Alright, so I'm going to go in now with a bit of earth, which is this beautiful gold up the top here, and I'm just gonna swipe that all across the lid. Alrighty, so yeah, now that I have done the gold all over the lid, I am now going to go back in with a bit of this shimmery purple here, Adventure, and just try and blend the gold and the purple out a little bit. So yeah, basically this whole Jeffree Star, Darby Vanity, Mum's Basement, everything, it's driving me insane, to be honest. Anyway, so thank you so much for tuning in to my first ever episode of Get Ready with Tea. I'll probably be doing these pretty regularly. I'll be just chatting about the sort of commentary drama stuff that interests me. Obviously there's less of it happening at the moment because people are in quarantine, but then again, people tweet stupid when they're in quarantine, so you never know, there might be drama all over the place. Yeah, thanks for coming along. I hope this one wasn't too rambly and boring. As I've said previously in my introduction video, there'll be less makeup videos, or at least more diverse videos across this channel in the future. At the moment, being stuck in isolation at home, there's only so much I can do, and a lot of that is just going to be me sitting in front of a camera talking. And if I'm going to be putting my makeup on to film, I feel like I may as well do it while I'm talking, because it adds a little bit of an extra element and it makes it fun. So thanks so much guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.